Okay, and now I'd like to introduce our speaker for the evening, Stephanie Hazen. So Stephanie is a master gardener, a master melittologist, and I had to look that one up. That's a bee scientist, and also brings with her a wealth of knowledge about providing backyard habitat for butterflies and pollinators of all kinds, especially our monarch butterflies. She's also passionate about educating people about how they can support these incredibly important insects. And she's even providing the seeds that can help you get started this fall. And if you haven't visited that back table, there'll be plenty of time, plenty of seeds. Don't worry, they won't run out at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'll turn the microphone over to you, Stephanie.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you all for coming here today. And we also, my fellow master gardener finished growing out some, she's here today, Lee Effinger, and she finished growing out some narrow leaf milkweed, and I think we have about 28 plants, so we'll figure out how to divvy them up if anybody wants any. My husband Ray Temple and I moved out in the country east of Salem about 14 years ago, and maybe about 10 years ago, I give or take, monarch butterflies came to our yard and laid eggs, and right away we were so excited. We invited the whole neighborhood. We had, put up a tent and let them enclose in the tent, and I mean that was the beginning of what this is. And then because I'm a master gardener and I was interested in educating other people, and I'm a photographer, slideshows, it just became a natural thing. So if you're wondering where this all came from, that's it. So this is a female monarch laying eggs on showy milkweed in our backyard. So adult butterflies need to be supported with nectar-producing blossoms all summer long, mud and water to stay hydrated, trees for perching in shade. So these are California tortoiseshells up at Lost Lake in the San Juan Pass. Every few years there will be an eruption of California tortoiseshells, and they were so thick that year that I scooped up dead ones on the road to take back to show kids. The trucks were hitting them. There were thousands and thousands and thousands of butterflies. There's a picture of native checker mallow. It's a good butterfly plant. There's some seeds for checker mallow back there and some yarrow seeds. Butterflies don't eat pollen, they eat nectar, and they also eat other animal poop. They land on rotting fruit. They suck up mud. So they eat strange things, but they like flowers they can land on with flat things so that they can stand on them. So these old-fashioned zinnias with the single layer petals, with the open nectar ports and a nice flat landing, that's what they like. But these kinds of flowers that have been hybridized for double petals, there's no access point for pollen or nectar. So these are the types of flowers you want to avoid. This camellia is of no use to butterflies or bees. There's no way to access the pollen and the nectar. It's just petals for people to look at. I got some dianthus seeds in a mixed seed packet one year, and I threw them out in an open area, and boy, are they ever a butterfly magnet. So I didn't bring dianthus seeds tonight because I'm just bringing native seeds, but those are easily available. And there's different kinds of dianthus called Sweet William. But you will see butterflies for sure if you have dianthus. Liatris is native to the Midwest. It's also a butterfly magnet. Quite often you can buy bulbs at stores. Even Costco has them in the spring. Checker mallow is a really important butterfly plant, and there's seeds for checker mallow back there, but don't overlook your sunflowers. Bees and butterflies alike really like sunflowers, and those are easy to grow. So the most common pretty butterfly in our area is a western tiger swallowtail. The adult only lives about 2 weeks. These chrysalids Ray found in a nest box. We were cleaning out bird nest boxes one year, and he found these chrysalids. But the caterpillars eat the leaves of trees, such as willow and cottonwood. So if we're gardening for butterflies, we have to think about what their caterpillars eat. Until I got interested in this subject, I didn't know that there are flowers that don't have nectar at all. California poppies have no nectar. They're just pollen, so you won't see butterflies on California poppy. And this is a little syrphid fly, a flower fly. So willow trees provide the earliest pollen and nectar for many species of bees and butterflies. The male and the female plants are on separate trees. So western tiger swallowtails use the host plant for their caterpillars. So you need to tolerate chewed up leaves and be happy. Clarkia mina, farewell to spring, the seeds are in the back. It's easily grown. It's a self-seeding native and it's attractive. Ours has always got butterflies and bees on it. So the common wood nymph caterpillar feeds on grass, while the adult eats rotting fruit, fungi, and a small amount of flower nectar. It's the caterpillar that overwinters. Not always is it the butterfly, not always is it the caterpillar or the egg, so their life cycles are all completely different, and there's only one generation per year. So Ray and I were driving through Basket Slough one time, and those fields were all clover one year, and you could see the western sulfur butterflies just flitting everywhere. So I got this picture hanging out the window of the car. We get Akamon sphinx moths all the time in our backyard, and I was so flabbergasted. Evidently, they like also, besides evening primrose and honeysuckle, they like grape leaves, and we live near grape fields, and so probably the farmer doesn't like them, but we like them. Their caterpillars are huge. They're amazing, and you can see how big the moth is. Evening primrose, I'm not sure I gave you seeds back there because I was limiting myself to natives, but I have some if you want them. They are open at night, and so you're going to get your moths coming to those. So here's a sphinx moth on a zinnia in our yard. So we don't want to use continuous nighttime lighting. Insects that are attracted to nighttime lights can't leave, and they can't feed, and they can't mate and complete their life cycle. So also they're right there to be predated on. So someone did a study, and continuous lighting reduces night flying and insect populations by 50% in England. So if you want to have your house lit for safety or whatever, have motion-activated outdoor lighting and encourage your neighbors to do the same. So here's a silvery blue, and the host plant is lupin. Here's a Fender's blue. I took this picture out at Basket Slough, and they must have one kind of lupin, Kincaid's lupin. So Lorquin's admirals, we see those on our property every year, and their overwintering strategy is to have a caterpillar curl a leaf around itself, and then they finish their life cycle in the spring. And these adults sip nectar from flowers and eat animal dung. Isn't that gross for such a beautiful butterfly? So you'll see a lot of people with butterfly bush. Butterfly bush is a highly invasive species, and but they have, and you're not allowed to sell it in Oregon. However, they have developed one that's only 1% to 2% fertile, and it doesn't spread. And we bought one of those at Dancing Oaks Nursery, and so far it hasn't spread at all. And it is definitely a butterfly magnet, but it is not a native plant. So foxglove is really pretty. You see it all over if you take a drive out in the woods in the springtime. It cannot be accessed by butterflies. They need to land on a flat flower so they can access the nectar ports. And it has become invasive all over Oregon. So this is from Cascade Head looking down on the Pacific Ocean. All right, the same thing for snapdragons. And if you go to Eastern Oregon, yellow toadflax is everywhere. So these toadflax were introduced as garden plants in the 1800s, and they're all over Eastern Oregon, wherever there's a ditch or water. So we have a lot of woodland skippers even now, and their caterpillars eat grass. So it's not a bad idea to have some native grasses that you don't mow, bunch grasses or something like that, or leave an area that you don't mow and let the woodland skippers overwinter. So right now we're at the end of our zinnia season, and boy, do they like zinnias. but they also like our Douglas aster. Another late fall plant is Douglas aster, and it's covered with bees and skippers right now at our house. You can stagger your plantings so that you have flowers late in the summer. Plant some zinnias now, plant them in 2 weeks, plant them in 2 weeks, and you'll get continuous blooming. Or you can just choose flowers that bloom early, mid, and late. So these are Douglas asters, and there's the skipper. And this is a Triopiolus cuckoo bee. So cuckoo bees leave their eggs in the nest of another bee and then take off. And so we know we have longhorn bees because we have Triopiolus, who's the cuckoo bee of longhorn bees. Cabbage whites are non-native butterflies. They're not cabbage moths, they're cabbage whites. And so these guys are on twinberry honeysuckle in our backyard. And the caterpillars feed on plants in the cabbage and mustard family. So you could control them with BT specifically for butterflies and moths, but you would be killing all butterflies and moths. So I discovered these nets, and Ray puts his cabbage in nets, and these nets are covering trees. They would cover me. So you can get them hand-sized to cover an apple, or you can get all gradations. So here's a cabbage white butterfly, and here's a crab spider that caught it. These are ambush spiders. They don't make webs. They change their color to match their surroundings. And these are on white flowers, so this cabbage or this crab spider is white. Okay, the anise swallowtail is nectaring on showy milkweed, but its host plant is fennel, anise, and parsley. And lomation is the native host plant in Oregon, and I did bring lomation seeds. Lomation is a member of the carrot family. So many birds, chickadees, and bluebirds feed their nestlings insects, caterpillars, and grubs, but never seeds. Doug Tallamy says it takes 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars to raise one batch of chickadees to fledging. So if you see caterpillars, that's great. You're successful. That's a positive thing. And if you don't want them on your plants, put them on a plate and put it on a plant stand and put some birdseed around it, and the birds will come and find your caterpillars. So, morning cloak butterflies overwinter as adults in tree holes and cracks. And they're the ones that love rotting fruit and tree sap. So you can see, instead of overwintering as a chrysalis or an egg or a larvae, those adults live 10 to 12 months. And they're pretty ratty and tattered by the time they reach our yard. They've been really aging. So California tortoiseshells, that's what we found up at Lost Lake. And they were sipping mud. And their caterpillars eat ceanothus leaves. And they migrate when they have an eruption year. So that's my feet at Lost Lake, and you can see a few butterflies sipping mud. You need to provide water they can't drown in. So you can have rocks in water. This is a paint tray. And then Ray has put water on a timer there. Unfortunately, when we moved out into the property, I had a big bowl. It was like what you change oil in with big sides, and we drowned some quail chicks. And so Ray came up with the idea of these graduated paint trays, and we have them all over the garden. We found frogs in them. On the trail camera, we see quail babies in them. We see raccoons washing their hands in them. So, it's a way to hide water all over your property. Okay, here's a western tiger swallowtail nectaring on milkweed. How long does the adult live? Not very long, only a couple of weeks. And the caterpillar about a month. But the chrysalis can hatch, if it's made in the springtime, it'll hatch out in 10 to 20 days. But if the chrysalis is made in the fall, it will overwinter. And these are the chrysalids that Ray found in the bird nest box. So painted lady butterflies use thistle and other plants as caterpillar food. These butterflies are all over the world, and they migrate in Europe to Africa, several thousand miles, to at least 2,000 miles, the same butterfly. So that's pretty amazing. And these guys will migrate from Mexico to Canada and back in one season. So here's a painted lady on narrowleaf milkweed, and that's the plants right there that you can take one home. So this is the very first monarch that ever came to our yard. One of our neighbors she was a walker, and she walked miles every day, and she would stop and talk. And she said, Stephanie, what's that? And there it was, right in our backyard on some swamp milkweed that I'd grown from seed. And so I ran and got my camera, and that butterfly has credit for me being here and having my interest here today. So monarch butterflies, they are a North American species. You can see the dates as to when they were found in other places. And some people think that perhaps they hitched a ride on sailing ships and got deposited, but still, the places they are have to have milkweed or something similar to milkweed because that's the only thing their caterpillars eat. There is a white monarch in Hawaii, so the gene pool was so small that there was an albino in there, and it kept perpetuating itself. The viceroy looks like a monarch, but you can see these horizontal lines, and that would tell you that was a viceroy. So this mimicry deters some birds from eating them. Monarchs and their caterpillars don't taste very good because they eat milkweed, which is poisonous, actually. So the monarchs fly about 5 miles an hour, covering 4,000 to 5,000 miles in their east coast fall migration to Mexico. The northern migration is through several generations of butterflies, but the southern migration is all one butterfly. That's pretty amazing. There's an east coast and a west coast migration of monarchs separated by the Rocky Mountains. So our butterflies go down to Southern California, whereas the east coast monarchs go down to Michoacan, Mexico. And it's not known whether they cross here, if they get lost or whatever. So butterflies wintering in California leave in the spring and fly north. They lay eggs, and then they die. And a new generation of butterflies emerges in a month, and then they work their way back up. And I've seen them along the Columbia River, and they may go into Canada, but not much. And then one of my friends has a Facebook page, and her last monarch emerged in her yard late September up in Portland. So that butterfly will fly all the way back down to California, and if it's lucky, it will live 5 or 6 or 7 months, and then lay eggs in California, and then those butterflies will go up to Southern Oregon and lay eggs, and then those butterflies will come up to Salem and lay eggs, and then those butterflies may make it up to the Columbia River. Okay, Xerces Society has been counting monarchs since 1997, and what they would do is a winter or a fall monarch count down in Southern California. And in 1997, there were over 1 million butterflies. In 2010, there were 2,000. 2,000. And they were counting more locations. And they had more volunteers. And it was thought that the monarchs were not going to recover. And the monarchs are what we are measuring. But it's happening to all insects. We're just not measuring them. And so if you and your friends and your friends and your friends intervene, perhaps we can save. But just think about all those birds that are feeding 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars to their babies. If they don't have monarch, they're not eating monarch caterpillars. If they don't have caterpillars, we're not going to have birds. So, everyone needs to do their part. You can be part of the problem, or you can be part of the solution. So, they're doing the count now. The last count in 2024 was 9,000 individuals. We'll find out what it is for this coming fall. And you can follow the Facebook page, Butterflies and Moths of the Pacific Northwest, and you can find out David James will post, he's the scientist who posts these numbers. So by understanding the biology of the monarch and a few propagation techniques for growing milkweed, you can help the monarch recover. So monarch caterpillars eat only milkweed, Asclepias, but there's 100 different milkweed plants, but only 2 are native to the Willamette Valley, and only 5 are native to Oregon. So showy milkweed, Asclepias speciosa, and narrowleaf milkweed, Asclepias fascicularis, are the ones that we have in the Willamette Valley. I like to have showy because it blooms first and dies back, and then narrowleaf, it blooms second and dies back, and then I like another one called swamp milkweed. Swamp milkweed is native to the United States, but not to Oregon. If I try to give showy milkweed to a fastidious gardener, they rip it out in about 5 years because it spreads and it goes everywhere. The rhizomes, the seeds, and so people that like tidy gardens, they don't like it. So I give them swamp milkweed. It just grows like that. It behaves, and it only has roots about that deep, and it doesn't make a lot of rhizomes. But if you want milkweed for all seasons, it's good to have all 3 types. So don't touch milkweed sap and get it in your eyes. You need to go to the emergency room immediately because you'll get corneal ulcers. Swamp milkweed grows 4 to 6 feet, and it does need to be watered, whereas the other 2, if you have them out in the field, you can kind of ignore them. So here's a western tiger swallowtail on swamp milkweed. Narrowleaf milkweed is, you even find that in Arizona. It's all over the place. And it's 1 to 2 feet tall, and it spreads through rhizomes and seeds. Milkweed might take 2 or 3 years to make a nice blossom. So if you want to buy starts that are a year old, you can look at the native plant sales in the spring. We don't suggest you buy milkweed from stores unless they know the history of their milkweed, because I interviewed a local person who has a place that sells plants near us, and she treats once a month with insecticide whether she needs it or not. She said, I can't sell a chewed up plant. And Lowe's and Home Depot were famously treating with systemic insecticides, which can last years in a plant, and they would have a little tab stuck in the ground protected against this, and this bug. Well, those were treated with insecticides, so you don't want those. We don't want to use tropical milkweed. It's this orange and yellow one. It can have the toxic compound in milkweed is cardinalids, and it can have such high cardinalids that it could be toxic to monarchs. And in warm climates, it doesn't die back at all, and it will perpetuate a disease called OE, which we're going to talk about shortly. So milkweed seed, like many other native seeds, needs cold, wet stratification, so you can plant it out in the fall. You can either plant it directly in the ground, or you can put it in little containers outside in your yard that you watch, and once they sprout, then you know you've got one, and then you can transplant it or give it away. Or give it to Lee, and she'll finish growing them for you. She did for me. That was nice. We live near Heritage Seedlings, and Heritage Seedlings has a native production fields for native plants, and that's where these seeds came from that I'm giving you tonight. And this is their milkweed field. So you can see why we got a monarch butterfly come to our house. It only had to come a mile away from this beautiful lunch, and that's how it found us. You can collect, this is the season and earlier to collect milkweed seeds. And if you want to grow milkweed indoors and do your cold stratification, Linda Boyer told me they just put the seeds in a jar of water for 2 weeks in the fridge to cold stratify them, and then press them in the soil, and they germinate at 60 to 70 degrees. And they can be started in greenhouses any season. And that's how I started these plants that I gave to Lee to finish growing out. I just did exactly that. They didn't all sprout at the same time, and I had them between wet paper towels in the kitchen, and as they sprouted, I planted them, and as another one sprouted, I planted it. So you can do that anytime. You need deep containers. In the wild, they like to have long roots. So this is an internet photo. I don't know what kind of milkweed that is, but that is a long root. So they get milkweed bugs. Their larvae eat milkweed seeds. Don't kill them. There's plenty of seeds to go around for everybody, bugs and all. So if you collect milkweed seed, you don't want to get the sap in your eyes, and you don't want to be collecting seeds that are too young. They need to be brown and the pods need to be open. So Tom Landis let me use these pictures. So here's showy milkweed pod that's open and brown. It's a narrowleaf milkweed pod that's open and brown. And if you get them at that stage, you can just shuck them out. But if you wait too long, they turn into fluff. And that's how they fly around. That's called coma, the fluff. And so they fly around like dandelions. And that is a mess to clean those seeds. There is a method where you could have a bag of them and put them in a shop vac. And Ray does that when we collect a lot of them, but it is a mess. So it's best to pay attention and get them while they're young. If you grow from seed, you have seeds to share, more plants for less money. You can have succession planting so you can have flowers blooming late. You might get a greater variety. You can cover a large area. You can fill in spaces. And you avoid buying plants with insecticide treatment. So these showy milkweed seeds were planted from plugs last year. It'll take 2 years to get leaves and produce flowers, and 3 years to produce runners. So this is Wyethia. There's seeds back there for you. It's my favorite plant. But it takes 4 years from seed to flower. So if you buy plants, less work initially, blossom sooner, sometimes easier to weed, and you'll have a definite higher survival rate. So I ripped off a leaf, and this is milkweed sap. This is irritating. And there's pictures on the internet of people with ulcerated corneas from getting milkweed sap in their eyes. And that's a chrysalis. So I sat on the deck and counted at least 14 different pollinators using showy milkweed. So this is a western tiger swallowtail. So this is a taconid fly. This is a parasitoid. It will lay its eggs on a monarch caterpillar, and the eggs will eat the caterpillar from the inside out. This is a hummingbird, female animus hummingbird sipping nectar from showy milkweed. We had a fledgling hummingbird last summer, and it was fun to watch because it didn't know how to hover. And so it kept trying to perch on the flowers and then get that long beak down in and fall off, and it was fun to watch it learn how to eat. So Bombus graciocolus is the brown-belted bumblebee, and it's on narrowleaf milkweed. We get those every late summer. It takes a large insect to pull pollinia from milkweed. So the pollen is called pollinia, and the insect actually puts its foot down a hole and pulls out the pollinia and doesn't know it's doing it. And I've rescued honeybees that are stuck down there and can't get out. And occasionally you'll see a dead honeybee stuck in those pollinia holes. So that's why butterflies and big bumblebees are really good for passing these pollinia around. Okay, monarchs taste with their feet. Although they have 6 legs, they only stand on 4 of them. The first 2 are shortened, and they taste their flowers. They taste their food. So this is a male monarch. These little dots are called androconia, and that's the source of the sexual pheromones. And the males also have narrow wing bars. And the male monarchs aggressively mate with females, and we've seen them flying around stuck together at Heritage Seedlings Farms. So this is a female monarch laying eggs. You can tell it's a female because she's got a fat abdomen and a wide wing bars. She's laying eggs on a young plant. They don't eat old dried up plants. So it's nice to have a succession of plants, either by variety of milkweed or by trimming back some of the plants mid-season so they'll sprout again. So here's a caterpillar, here's an egg, here's a female laying eggs. There's a 5th instar monarch caterpillar on narrowleaf milkweed. So the eggs can be hard to spot, and sometimes these aren't eggs. Some insects pierce the leaves and the sap comes out and it makes a droplet and it looks like an egg and it's not. So monarchs are true insects that undergo complete metamorphosis, and it takes about 6 weeks for them from egg to adult. Cold weather, longer; warm weather, faster. So if you look closely, if they have this accordion pleating, then that is an egg. If it's just a clear blob, then that's milkweed sap. So monarch caterpillars molt each time, or 5 times, and each stage is an instar. So here's Ray's finger with this teeny weeny little caterpillar on narrowleaf milkweed in our backyard. And then there's a little bit bigger, and then the 5th instar is huge. Monarch or caterpillars are voracious eaters, so raise plenty of milkweed plants. And I don't think you should start with less than 6 plants, because if you're lucky enough, I mean, I had a lady bring me 3 caterpillars because she had 1 plant and it was empty. I mean, they ate the whole thing. So these are just some more caterpillars. So there is a parasite they get called OE, and people that have too few milkweed plants, these OE spores contaminate the leaves, and then that recontaminates the insect. On the wings are these tiny little intermediate stages of this Ophoresis electroscera, and the caterpillar will eat those, and if he eats enough of them, either his chrysalis will turn dark and not open, or when it does open, the butterfly will have such crumpled wings it can't fly away. A few OE spores won't harm the butterfly, but if it gets overwhelmed with OE spores, then it can't function. So we don't want tropical milkweed, which doesn't die back. It's good to have succession milkweed and plenty of it, so things are spread around. Some people that raise caterpillars inside in plastic containers, they'll need to wash their leaves of their before they feed them to the caterpillars. Okay, these are the true legs they walk on, and these are the pro legs, which are little suction cups. You can see this little bit of silk starting to form. This caterpillar is getting ready to form a chrysalis. So the caterpillars eat the flowers as well as the leaves. And the day that the butterfly emerges, the green chrysalis turns clear, and you can see the caterpillar inside. So their wings are not filled with fluid, and their abdomen is filled with a lot of fluid. So they need to hang for several hours and fill their wings. And they're very innocent during that time. They could be eaten quite readily by a predator. So wasps, being meat eaters, seek out monarch caterpillars to eat and take to the nest to feed their own young. Taconid flies lay their larvae on the caterpillars and they get eaten from the inside out. European paper wasp eats a lot of caterpillars every year. The praying mantis loves monarch eggs and caterpillars. You can tell this is a European mantis because it's got this white spot, so this is an invasive species. You can tell it's a female because it's got an abdomen full of eggs. So you can bring caterpillars inside to raise in safety. You can cut the leaf without touching the caterpillar and paper clip it to another leaf, and you can wash the leaves and raise them. Not knowing any better, or how long it took the first year, we took some inside, and then we had to go to a family reunion down in Bandon, and so we brought leaves and the caterpillars along, and we didn't have them in a cage, and we'd come back and they would be up on the ceiling of the inside the trailer. So you got to plan ahead. You can read about what to do on the internet, but I didn't. So if you're raising a lot of caterpillars in captivity, you need to separate them because the big ones will eat the little ones. And we raise them in a laundry hamper. And this is milkweed, and this is our backyard, and these are stock tanks. And so Ray put up a screen tent, and I'll show you the purpose of that. But these are our milkweed plants, and these are our laundry hampers. So once they formed a chrysalis, we clipped the chrysalis and hung it from a clothesline. So there's a chrysalis, and there's one. And so when they emerged, they were safe, and we could catch them. So at this stage, the butterflies are easy to catch, and they're not released till they're flying strong. And you could keep them there if you wanted to for a day or two if it was bad weather. I've seen people feeding them mashed up watermelon. They'll eat stuff like that. If the weather's good, you can let them go the same afternoon. So when a caterpillar is ready to form a chrysalis, it makes a silk pad. And we could see those caterpillars going back and forth like that, making that silk pad. And then they have hooks, and they make a J form. So there's the hooks, and there's the chrysalis, or there's the silk. And there's a close-up of how they're hanging there. And after a few minutes of wiggling, they get rid of their skin, and they begin to form this chrysalis. And so nobody knows why they have beautiful dots. So there's that silk pad, there's the cremaster, and this is the chrysalis. And if you're observant, you can tell males from females. This is a longer slit opening, this is a little dot opening. And so there's that illustration again. And people that know things actually know where the body parts are inside that. So newly emerged butterflies are unwary, and this is one on Ray's face. And I was so nervous placing that sticker. You're supposed to have it rotated 45 degrees, so someone down in California looking at it with binoculars can actually read what the sticker says. So. And you're supposed to put it up here. This is called the mitten. It looks like a glove. And so this should be rotated. So one of the 50 that we released was found in Southern California. And it was actually found more than 4 times. I think it was 6 or 7 times. And it was found over a period of 7 months. And at that point, that was a record for how long they live. So that was another reason why we were hooked. I mean, when you have success and you're new, you get excited. So these are the recovery points of where the butterflies are found in Southern California. Back in the day, they used the shore pines and natural pine trees. Well, people cut them down and planted eucalyptus. Well, they used that. They're trying to stay safe from winter storms down there. Well, now the eucalyptus are dying, and so they have a shortage of trees, actually. So you can get stickers from David James, Washington State University, if you're so lucky to find or have caterpillars and raise monarchs in your backyard. This is how you hold a butterfly for tagging, and that tag's upside down, but that's what a newbie does. And so there you go. And that's my husband in the back. And he let me take this picture with a butterfly on his face. So it's not complicated. Just plant milkweed and flowers and let nature take its course. There's a great place in Elkton, a butterfly pavilion in Elkton, Oregon. And they actually raise them. It's in Southern Oregon, so there's a lot more monarchs. And they bring them in, and you can walk in this butterfly pavilion. Hats off to Linda Boyer, this native seed manager at Heritage Seedlings. Without her salvaging native milkweed seeds and growing them, we wouldn't be here. I mean, that's where all those seeds came from in the back. And that's why we had monarchs come to our house, because we live close to that big field. You can find out where native plant nurseries are by visiting the Native Plant Society of Oregon Portland chapter. You can find out about where all the winter and spring Washington or Oregon native plant sales are. There's just one website. You can find out where all of them are. This is to tell you about iNaturalist. So these are pictures out of my phone from a couple nights ago. iNaturalist lets you take a picture, and so here's the picture out of my phone, and then you've got an eye, and so you click on the eye, and it says look up bug, and then once you've clicked on it, it says it's Desmora funeralis, and then you can stop there. But if you post it on iNaturalist, a specialist will eventually review your posting and tell you what they think. Not only that, because you took it with your phone, the date, the time, and the GPS coordinates will be there, and scientists from around the world will be able to use that information. Ray found a land planaria out in our garden one year. He put it on iNaturalist, had a tentative identification by going through these steps, and someone in Australia identified it. And that was their life's work, was that particular bug. So you can meet people in the strangest places on iNaturalist. So thanks for coming, and it's time for questions. He wants to know the distance between your garden and the water source, and does it vary between species? I think the butterfly's like an all-in-one. So I see more butterflies at a wildlife refuge that has water and host plants, and yeah, if you're on a stream, that's fine. Yeah, I don't know, but we get dragonflies from a quarter mile away. I know that's how, quarter to half a mile away is the closest pond to our house, and we get dragonflies in our backyard. I don't know how far butterflies will go between where they're laying their eggs and where they're getting their water, but I would think the closer the better. You can't, she wants to know how far apart your flower garden is from your vegetable garden so that you don't have things eating your vegetables. I think they can fly 5 miles a day. So, I think monarchs migrating go 20 to 30 miles a day. So I don't think that's the thing. You need to cover your vegetables with a screen tent or those little individual things. That's actual sightings. People, there's, lots of volunteers down there in lots of different locations. 1, click, 2, click, 3, click.
So it might not be the total population?
No, it's what was counted. Let's see. I didn't mean to do this. This is a video. If you want to stay for a 9-minute video, we will, but I'm not going to do it right now. No, that's how many they've counted. How many there are, we don't know how many there are, but that's how many they counted, 9,000. Painted ladies also migrate very far, yes.
Do they cluster in the magnificent,
Yeah.
huge amounts?
Well, no, they're not like, no, they don't cluster in one spot like the monarchs do. But you'll see, and the California tortoiseshells is what we saw up in the mountains. And they were thick in the air, but they are going to die up there. They're not, they overwintered down in Southern California, and then they made their generations and made it up to Oregon, and then we saw them on the San Am Pass. But they don't overwinter as adults. I think they probably overwinter as a chrysalis. And that's me just thinking. It's not me knowing. Any other questions? Yes. David James will tell you that. He says how does a butterfly know which way to fly? They're keying in on the sun. They're keying in on the day length. So they're keying in on things in their environment. But I don't particularly know how they know how to fly. But I know they know when to fly, and it has to do with day length and the position of the sun in the sky and those kinds of things.
I've studied a little bit of this sort of thing, and the mental capacity to figure out how they do this, I can't imagine the mental capacity of a butterfly.
Yeah.
It just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
But you're saying that, I've read that it'll take generations to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, and
Not
then
only does one butterfly know which way to go, so does their son and daughter and grandson and granddaughter.
he's saying
That's
how,
lazy.
how they don't teach each other how to go. So on the way north, there's a new generation going in uncharted territory. And on their way south, it's one butterfly who's going past all those places where his predecessors lived, going down to California, and not ever having been there before.
Yeah,
It's pretty amazing.
yes, it'd be a good puzzle to figure out.
She wants to know how common the monarch butterflies are in Oregon. They're commonly uncommon. So there's a Facebook page, Monarch Butterflies in the Pacific Northwest. There are, you can follow them on iNaturalist, which I talked about, which is a website. You can follow them through Monarch and Milkweed Mapper, which is a Xerces website. People are reporting them. And there's another website that's being reported because I'm old, I can't think of it right now. But, and there's a lot of Facebook pages that will be reporting these things, and then people go and rush and go. They're all over Southern Oregon. Quite a few of them are in Eugene. Quite a few of them go up to Portland. A neighbor a mile away from me had one in her backyard. Did she call me? No. But, and then this year we didn't see any over at Heritage Seedlings, but we have gone over at the right time of the year and seen quite a few monarchs in that huge patch. So it takes a lot to bring them in. So it takes your neighbors and you, and it takes a presence. You know, they're not going to probably find one little plant all by itself. He wanted to know if the monarchs that go to California are the same species as the ones that go to Michoacan, Mexico. They are the same species, but as far as we know, they don't ever meet each other. Some of them might cross over and meet each other in southern Arizona and southern California, but so far no tagged western monarchs have shown up in Mexico, and no tagged eastern monarchs have shown up in California. And so I think the Rocky Mountains do a good job of separating them. And how this originated, I don't know. Climate change, she wants to know if there's any information on how climate change is affecting butterflies. It may be, this isn't out of my own head, it may be making things mature more quickly than the butterflies are ready. You know, their plants may be disappearing faster. They may have more trouble finding water. I don't know at what temperature butterflies expire, but all of us have a preferred optimum temperature that we want to live at. Mostly, I think it's agricultural practices, clean farming from cement to cement, no native plant with quite a diversity. These monarchs that are flying south, they have to stop and nectar every once in a while. And we go do a raptor run out in Polk County in the fall, and it's all ag fields with no native plants. So I was told cities are about 20 miles apart. A butterfly can fly 20 miles a day. So if each city is overrun with milkweed, there's a chance for these butterflies. But not only milkweed, it has to be nectaring plants so that they can nectar to get home in the fall. So that's where your asters come in. And that sunflower that I can't think of the name of, that Ray can't think of the name of, there is a Midwestern sunflower that grows this tall with tiny little flowers, and I can't think of the name of it. But we need fall blooming plants so that they can migrate south. And we need water, and we need safe places. The lighting is at night is more for moths. I don't think it's affecting butterflies, and it's for migrating birds. So I've got a talk coming up at the end of October at Ankeny Nature Center. You can go to Ankeny Nature Center's webpage. Ray tells me it's October 28th. Is that right? It's either 28th or 25th. I'm giving a gardening for wildlife. And so if you want to see a gardening for wildlife, we can talk about that. But night lighting interferes with bird migration. It interferes with night flying insects. And it's just not necessary, and it's just not good. She wants to know what plants you can put in your garden for moths and what colors they like. I don't know. I've never come across that. But anything that is blooming at night will take care of a moth. So I like the evening primrose because it's closed during the day and open at night. But my zinnias are open all night. The dianthus is open all night. The milkweed's open all night. So anything that's got a flower at night will be good for moths. The question is, are neonicotinoids insecticides a problem for butterflies? And yes, it will kill any insect. Any other? All right, thanks. You're a great audience.